Good evening. Not yet. Tonight's agenda, we are going to be meeting with Chief Lund, and then we have a non-public, and we'll be doing other business, and then at 6:30, we have a non-public for 2 interviews for town administrator. I would like to announce the farmers markets still being held on Saturday at 10 to 2 at the town office. There is also going to be a basketball, softball, chicken, barbecue, and home run derby on Saturday throughout the day at Memorial Park. And there's also going to be an upcoming townwide yard sale on June 16th. Residents should contact Mrs. Talbot or visit the website for more information. Before we start, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chief Lund, what can we do for you this evening?
Just trying to figure out a way to get the testing on the hydrants done.
The testing or the repairs?
The testing so that we can begin the repairs. So the testing, which is part of the process of figuring out what needs to be done for repairs, needs to be done. I have borrowed the equipment from a friend so that we can do that, but I need to find out if we can pay a couple of our guys or something through Peter's account or something so they can take the truck out and do all that testing.
My understanding, Chief, was when we discussed this last budgeting session, Peter's crew, which is where we budgeted the $10,000 for the hydrant testing, was going to handle going to the dry hydrants that you would identify
Yeah, you did.
and be sure that they can blow them out and that there was no obstructions, so that you could draft water in. And having spoken with Peter, he's ordered components already for
For 2 hydrants, yes.
2 hydrants.
Yeah.
So as far, and what my discussions with him were on, was as far as the actual testing for water flow and what you get from there, that's part of your operation of the fire department. It wouldn't be Peter to determine what the flow and,
No, I'm not expecting him to.
okay, good.
I'm expecting that we would take care of that testing. But my
Good.
question would be, since all the money went into his account for what I thought was maintenance and testing, is there any place that I can pay? I can't do it under training, because I figured we've identified, I think between all of us, we identified 13 hydrants. I'm guessing, and I'll know better after we do it the first time, but I'm guessing it's gonna take us 2 6 to 8 hour days to get those testing done.
But-
Because they've gotta go down, hook up to the hydrant, hook up the gauges, run it for 15 or 20 minutes. If it fails, then do it again, whatever. Pack it all up, go to the next one. So you figure it's probably gonna take an hour a hydrant.
I thought what we were doing is prioritizing hydrants and only going as far as the 10,000 would take us, am I not?
That's my
So we
understanding.
weren't
We're
gonna
not
do all
doing all of
13 of them if we can't go back and fix them, because we've been,
See,
how many years?
I wasn't part of any of this part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, because we
I
talked
came
about,
in after with a whole presentation. You guys had already decided what you wanted to do.
no, because we talked about how much money we were gonna put off, and we said $10,000, which would give us 1 new and repair, because, or however many new, because there was a certain amount. So the $10,000 was really just for repair and maintenance, like parts and
So how do we
replacement.
determine which ones need to be repaired and maintained without testing?
You were gonna prioritize which ones you thought should be fixed first.
Right, but how do I do that before? I have to test them to find out
Correct.
which ones to prioritize.
Whoa, let's
No.
back up.
Yeah,
You gave us that map
right.
Right,
with each one of the dry hydrants that was
that we
non-working.
I gave you a map that we identified, some that were not working, that we weren't gonna do anything with.
Yeah.
And then the 13 that we thought we should keep in
Correct,
maintenance and service.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then you were gonna prioritize from
Yes.
there, which one should be done first.
Yep, so
And-
that's where we are right
And
now.
as we do one, okay, we spent $3,000, we've got 7 left, let's do another one. Oh, we spent $3,000, we've got 4
Yeah.
left. It's So that's the way we're doing it.
Yep, I'm
Okay, and
I'm
we're on the same page.
We're all on the same page on that, but my
Yep.
question now is, I have this equipment
Mm-hmm.
to test those hydrants so that we can determine which ones are already working that need absolutely no maintenance, which ones need maintenance because they're not working, and then we're gonna prioritize from there further down. So Peter right now is determined he's gonna do the one on Tricknick and the one on Old Country.
Peter determined that, or you did?
He petered it.
I would have thought he determined that speaking with you.
He and I spoke, and he
Okay,
said he
so
had
those
been
were
out-
the two,
He had been out to look at those, he estimated between those two, they're gonna be about $2,000. Fix them, put them back in service and everything.
So how do we know this if we haven't tested?
my, from what you gave us on that map, there were those that are working, there were those that were not working, and some that, well, they're not working, but we don't need them right now.
Right,
So I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have spoken with Peter to say, you know, out of the ones that aren't working, which wouldn't need a test because you know already
Okay.
they're not
I
working,
can give you that.
Peter was gonna speak with you and you tell him, start with these.
okay, I'm a little confused, let me back up a little bit. In order to know which ones need to be repaired, are in total working order, or whatever, under the standard, you're supposed to test them twice a year. We have not tested hydrants. Let's just say we're gonna start testing hydrants, and go from there. So in order to do that, for me to say, Peter, this one's next, then this one, then this one, this one, we need to know, does this one completely work? Is it pulling 500 to 1,000 gallons a minute, or is it not pulling anything? Is that a critical one, say it's Hutter, is it a critical one to the biggest population location in the town, then that would be our first priority. So we already identified Tricknick and Old Country because those are our two potential biggest water sources. We know that the Tricknick one, the piping has to be rerouted, and some of it is that old iron piping that's just kind of rotted through. So we already identified those as the first two critical ones. We could tell that right off without testing, because we already knew Old Country wasn't working because we ran we ran a training with pumps training, and we couldn't keep water flowing out of it. So we knew already there was an issue with that. We didn't have to test it, because we know it's not gonna meet the testing requirement. So he's already fixing those two. Now, where do we go from there? We're going to start testing our hydrants, so we now have the equipment to test it. I borrowed it from this pumps guy. He's gonna let us use it. I'm guessing it's gonna take, and like I said, the first time, I'm just guessing, but when you figure travel time, setup time, the time it takes to test, takedown time, it's probably an hour per hydrant. If we've already identified two, we've got 9 left, or 10 left, or 11 left, I'm sorry, that we still need to test in order to prioritize those next ones, to spend that 10,000 until we run out of money.
But why are you under the impression that that money is to pay firefighters to go and test?
I'm asking if there's a way for us to pay firefighters, because I can't take,
If we start doing
12
that
or
now, we're gonna
14.
do that forever, because you're saying you're gonna be testing fire hydrants the whole time.
well, the other option is a company will come out and test them, but they test them at $100 an hour, so I was trying to save some
But
money.
what happens if you hook up the truck to it and see what the pump draws through the pumper? Does that not tell you?
No.
No.
Hmm. You have to have a piece of equipment with a pitot gauge on the end that will actually give you the sustained pressure that will pump. A
So you
sustained-
don't have that on the pumper truck. If you were down, say, at Trickneck, Old Country Road, and you hooked on after the dry hydrant was repaired, and ran that pumper and shot a hose back into the pond, you couldn't tell by your gauge whether or not you were sustaining pressure?
We can tell you sustaining pressure, but not how much, not consistently.
I think we're getting into the weeds here. We wanna make sure when you go there, that works for a fire. And I'm thinking if you hook up a pumper truck to it, and you're drawing water out and shooting it out the hose,
So there's a formula and a test that tells you that if it sustains this amount of pressure for X amount of time, then you will have enough to get through to 2 hours or whatever. Short of doing that, the only other option to do that would be then to hook that up and run it for 2 hours.
And on the day that the fire happens, how do we know that there's not some bag down there that blocks it up? So all the testing and whatnot we did,
You test
My-
the
I
emissions
thought-
on your car,
the-
and then the next day, the emissions on your car
Yeah.
might not work. I don't know.
but during the budget session, what we were in total agreement with was to make sure that the hydrants that we had are operational.
Correct.
As far as testing, I would have been under the impression that you hook up the truck as long as you could draw water, because I remember your discussion, you just repeated it again, was when you went to Old County Road, it didn't work. And I was shocked because that's one of the rather newest ones we have in town.
And I actually think it was a cracked screen on it, so.
Yeah, I think Peter told me he's ordered parts
He's
for,
ordered parts for it. I guess I don't know how we can maintain something if we don't know that it
And
is or is not working.
so the testing, since we're not normally, or we shouldn't be really spending 100% of stipends every year based on how people work, we can't take stipend money, add it and say this person's getting X amount because they were involved in the testing, so we're giving them, so this year, instead of getting 100% of their stipend, what they would have been, then we have this money that's there, they're getting 110% because they were involved in hydrant testing.
I don't have that in, the only thing we have in place, I don't mind doing that, if that's okay. The only question I would have is it wouldn't be, we don't have a mechanism in place to give them 110% of their stipend or whatever, but if we can do that, do I need your permission to do that?
I thought you did that last time. You gave us the formula that we were gonna be issuing the stipends based on, and if you had a firefighter that did not, say,
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
training,
Yep, he
so
gets knocked down,
he
yep.
gets knocked down, so you have that pool of money to use to, hey, this guy has gone above and beyond doing X, Y, Z.
Can I do that, so long as I document what I'm paying them?
Yeah, I
You don't
thought
have
you
a
had done
problem
that
with
last
Stay
time.
in your stipend line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking to myself, is if we're paying stipend, the stipend is for all firefighter duties
Sure.
in whole.
Because right now, we had a little formula in place about if they went and did community things.
Mhm.
And that works out, if they do that, we tack on about, I think it works out to about $4 an hour or something, they get extra. But if I can have the latitude to do that in my own, I don't mind doing that, I just wanna make sure that it's okay with you guys. that
I have no
do that.
problem with
Well,
it.
As long as
stay
it's
within budget.
documented.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Within budget,
So if on that
documented.
sheet that I give to Roger, I'll just document X amount of hours at pump training at.
Yeah.
Cause there are guys that get extra for being the maintenance officer, and we write it right on what it is. You get extra for handling communications, all that. If you're okay with that, then I'm fine,
I'm good, because I know,
just
yeah.
I can't keep taking it from training, cause you figure 16 hours worth of training is our entire summer
No,
of training.
I would think we have some slush and stipend
Okay.
based on it. Use that money, it's already budgeted, and that's what they're doing, they're performing firefighter duties.
Okay.
Now, back to the prioritized thing, did we ever nail that down? I don't think we did, because there's only X amount of dollars that the highway
Right.
department has to buy parts.
Right.
So,
So I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that once we do this testing, I will come up with a list of the ones that we think are the most critical to the needs of the community based on population or whatever, or greatest water flow, it may come down to that because of the drought. And I'm gonna go to Peter and say, this one needs to be next, this one, when we're out of money, then these go into next year's budget.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
do we need
Yes.
to- Well, do we
I'm
need to
good.
test them all this year? I mean,
I don't think that's what she's saying.
that's what she's saying.
I'm saying test them all, but why not test them all?
I wouldn't test them
No.
any further in advance
Then the
than
10
what
grand's
Peter
gonna take it,
can
yeah.
repair them. So in other words, like now, he's going to do the two that we spoke about.
Right.
Let him finish up with that, see what that comes out to,
Okay?
but know where the third one should be.
Right. And know
Well,
where the
I'm
fourth one
saying,
should be.
what if we test them,
Yeah,
so we test all 11 of them, and 9 of them are fine?
then he only has
Then-
two.
So
Great.
why wouldn't we test them all?
Great, but if you get to the third, fourth, and fifth one and they're all junk, then why go to the sixth, seventh, and eighth one if you don't have the money to repair
I'm
it?
running out of water sources.
Well, yeah, but you haven't had them in the past, so just because we're thinking about doing this doesn't mean we have to do it right now. If that's the case, then we should have set more money, more than $10,000.
No, I mean,
Well,
no,
I
I
don't think
understand
so.
what you're saying. I look at it, it's very much like our road plan. We didn't go out and go, hey, here's 3 junk roads, that's $600,000. Don't look at any other roads, planning the next year, the next year, the next year. We had a 5, 10, 15-year plan on road maintenance because we went out and said, okay, these are the priority roads, then the next year's this and next year's this. If we just stopped at 600,000, every year we'd have to go out again. Instead, we have a plan. So I don't have a problem if we test them all, if we had the ability to test them all. She's borrowed the equipment, test them. And then she can have a priority list of 1 through 11. If he runs out of money, he runs out of money. But then the next year we know where to start and go on, unless in her travels around we suddenly find out, okay, that one was a priority, but all of a sudden this one that just needed a screen has completely, broken. It moves up on the list.
Or they get in there and say, it only had a broken screen, and we thought it was a broken pipe too, and now all of a sudden we've got money to do an extra one. I think we
Again-
should be testing them. It depends on if you look at NFPA standards or ISO. ISO says you're supposed to test them once every quarter. There's no way we can test them every quarter.
Right, and that, I'm sure
We're
there are
gonna
other
be lucky.
parameters that are in there.
Right now, the plan that I see that's the most reasonable for us is to back flush them twice a year and test them once a year. If we could test them twice a year, that'd be great, but if we test them once a year, I'm happy. So if we get this first test done this year, and like John said, we prioritize till we run out of the $10,000, next year we put 10,000 more in, or whatever we put in, and we pick up from there and we keep marching on. In the meantime, we come up to another test. Eventually, our system should be good that we test every year and we have minimal to no maintenance. Really, when you look at it, by the time we bring these all the way up to where they should be, we shouldn't be in a big maintenance thing every single year. It should be relatively small. Maybe a broken screen here or there, plow truck hits one, that kind of stuff, but we shouldn't have major repairs to these every single year, because they're dry hydrants, they shouldn't freeze. So long as they're working well, once we get over this first hump of where do we actually stand with the 13 hydrants, then from there, we march out on a plan that should be relatively easy to maintain.
Fine,
Okay,
Good.
good, that's all I needed to know, thank you.
okay?
Yep. 7 minutes to spare.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith.
Let's talk about, transfer station. Evidently, we are going, do you have the copies of that? Go with contract, but I was talking to Peter the other day about having him look into what it would cost the town to purchase, lease, compactors, look at price for a truck, some roll-off containers. I think what we're paying, when you look at per haul, just the hauling rate is very high. And Peter is saying he's also gonna look into what the rate would be to take it over to, Reds.
$120. $120 a ton, MDS.
Yeah, MDS.
Yes,
Banana
yeah.
disposal.
I looked at that today, it's $120 a ton.
We were talking pound, is that like 4 cents a pound or something, if you divide it out?
2,000
He was gonna check.
3 cents a pound.
Yeah, okay, and he was gonna check with them and try and give us a presentation to say, buy a used roll-off truck, some containers, lease purchase some compactors, so we can look at it and see if it's a
Viable option?
cost viable option. Because like now, he says they take the metal, we get nothing for it. The trash goes to Reds, and then, the plastics, we would have to bring it someplace. But I think, when you think of what the cost of a vehicle would be, which would be our first initial cost, I think over the long run, it could pay for itself pretty quick, like in less than 2 years probably. But
I mean,
I'd like to
it's
wait
all
to see
numbers to
where it
run, I
comes
guess.
in.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know what it would take to get a return on the investment,
Yeah.
to be honest, that would be,
Mhm.
cause you're talking a 10-wheeler or a triaxle,
Mhm.
so those aren't cheap
Plus maintenance contract on those, cause
on the
On-
compact.
on anything, on the truck, on the compactor, I mean,
Well, it's no different than we have on the six-wheelers.
I know, but, I mean, every year we're running super tight on that, I think, yeah, I mean, if we can get real numbers, apples to apples, you know, I'd look at it, but I mean, didn't we, I think it's been since I've moved here that we got out of doing it ourselves,
We never did it ourselves,
never?
never.
We've always received it when it was a landfill.
What we were trying to do was compact it on the recycling.
Right, we baled cardboard, we baled
Mhm.
plastics, yeah.
That's why nowadays, like what we had budgeted for this year on the third compactor for the commingles.
Peter and I were talking about just the glass up here, just start throwing it in the trash, cause you can't get rid of it, nobody wants it. It's, grinding it, the guy that was here, I believe the gentleman that got the gravel contract said, I don't wanna grind glass, he said, you gotta grind it so fine that. he said,
Oh, Peter did it right there. He already did it.
Yeah, that guy didn't like, cause he didn't wanna grind it to so much that he was breathing in dust.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
if you're grinding it less than that, so that you can use it in road repair, you're not gonna grind it that.
I don't know the microns for road repair, but it's pretty fine stuff. It really, it can't have jagged edges. It can't be, I don't think, any bigger than a nickel.
Mhm.
So there's some criteria that'd have to be looked at.
But we weren't looking to use it in the gravel mix. What he was using it for is the pipe bedding for putting in all the culverts, rather than going out and buy crushed stone,
That's right.
because it was a
You brought
good
that up.
aggregate for free draining material.
Yep, you brought that up. That is, yep.
That's why he said all he did was backed it out of the bins, rolled over with our roller and scooped it up and has it sitting in the back. So if it works, we'll find out. If it doesn't, then we'll
Yeah,
be plan B and C, I guess. But I'd like to see what he comes back with, at least the numbers, and see if it would work.
yeah, so.
It
look
can't
at-
hurt to run numbers.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. I have no opposition to that, running numbers.
So it's numbers for that and seeing what another company offered, is that the two things?
But I'd like to see us get out of the trash business, to be honest.
I think you can look into that if you like, and I think it's just gonna come out to be a more expensive thing for the public.
Well, it's, okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the two rates that we're looking at now, current rate and the trucking costs was $155, and now we are at, or would be at, how did he break this
I've got
one
two
out?
sheets with the same numbers, so I'm going, I'm a little confused here.
Somebody messed up.
There we go.
Yeah, so it's gone from one, where did I just read 130? The haul rate was 130, we're up to 155.
Mhm.
The rental on the compact is was it says 300 on the side, but $320. And we're at 500 on the new one. Which is actually for two. Yes, it's gone from 320 to 500.
You're looking at, 3 on the current and C on the new, is that,
3 on the current
yeah,
And B.
and B on the new,
okay, so,
the 50 and the 30.
yeah, but maybe I'm reading it wrong?
On number
Looks
3,
like
it
that
was
number
a
went
50.
down, did it?
No, it went up.
3, this one.
Yeah, but this is for 2.
And
So
so
is this one. It's for 150 and 130. 50 yard and a 30 yard.
Okay, so it's 2 and 3, it's not just 3, okay.
what was that, Jay?
It's, you're looking at 2 different lines, right?
No,
The
correct.
equipment rental,
Yeah. So right here on this one, equipment rental,
Yeah.
compactor, first
Yeah.
50 yard and first 30 yard was or $320. Then if you go to this one, equipment rental for 2 compactors. 50
Yeah,
yard. and a 30.
350 yard compact, so,
it's not 3, it's
Oh,
2. 2 compact is, it should say 850 cubic yard compactor
Yeah, I
and
think
1.
that's a misprint because
Yeah.
then here he's got for an additional compactor and this is for another 30 yard here.
Because when
If
people
we're
put out
getting, 4 for $500, that's a deal.
Yeah. And then the, number C is the additional one we had asked for a bid on this year for the commingle.
Which last year was 100 for a second 50 yard.
Yeah, but this one's a 30 yard, no?
No, for additional, well, for
Yeah,
additional compactor, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bottom one, second 30 yard was 50 and it's gone up to 75.
What I don't see on here, Joanne, is where is the cost per ton for disposal?
9250, is that up at the top of the new first paragraph?
Yeah, disposal and truck and
Okay,
municipal
and
solid
do you know
waste.
what it was?
86.
What does this, when we sent out the RFP with the contract, what did it have for the duration of the contract? Is it a 1 year? I'd like to review that to see what that
Mhm.
terms are. Because I would like to make sure there's an out if we find another option.
Yep.
Okay, we can look at it later. Tim, you walked in, something short and quick, because we're going into non-public. Okay.
Make a motion to go into non-public under 91A3,